Hi everyone, my name is Ariel. I'm going to intro the panel about the global playing field in the mobile ad space. Just before we do, so I run a company called AppsFire, which is a native mobile ad network. We're powering monetization for a lot of apps. Some are in the top 10 in the App Store if you want to see what it looks like. And we're going to talk with a great set of speakers today about how mobile advertising is deploying at a global scale and how it impacts the industry as it morphs over months and over years. So please intro yourself. Keep it, just to make a good segue with the previous keynote, Twitter style. So 40 characters. I'm sure Kilton can do that. And then we'll start with questions. I think we'll have time also for questions at the end of the panel. Guillaume, will you start?
Is this single? Yeah. Hi everyone. So I'm Guillaume Lelay, VP and General Manager at Fetch. Fetch is a global mobile advertising agency. We work with clients like hotels.com, eBay, Supercell, and we're a close partner to Offers and been working with them for quite a long time.
That was not Twitter style. That was not Twitter style. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, my name is Ralph Hirt. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of Offers here. Welcome, everyone. I guess my digital background, I started sort of in the 90s with DoubleClick in the UK, then spent 5 years in Asia Pacific, and then later came still with DoubleClick to New York. So since 2005, I'm in the US. Later worked for Glam Media, mainly building the international business, and then joined Offers in February this year, what I'm very excited about.
I'm Kelton Lin. I'm product manager at Twitter. Kevin went over a lot of the products that I work on around our mobile app promotion product suite and tailored audiences. I've been at Twitter for about 4.5 years, so I've worked in a number of different areas of the company, including early on in our data licensing business, as well as our partnerships with mobile OEMs and carriers around the world to distribute the Twitter apps.
Hi everyone, my name is Zubair. I work at Google, and I'm on a sales team that focuses on mobile-first businesses in support of their app distribution efforts. I joined Google through the acquisition of AdMob 4 years ago.
Great. So just before we start, because we're going to talk about global and not really just US. So first in the audience, how many people are not American, I just came for this event? About a third of the audience. How many of you are advertising at least half of your budget outside of the US? All right, that's great. It's going to be a great topic. So we have mostly an American audience and mostly people investing dollars in the US. Can you tell us in your business, give us an idea of how local you are versus global you are, right? In terms of reach, in terms of revenues, in terms of operation, and then based on that we can ask questions relevant to how you operate globally.
I mean, on our side, our headquarters is in London, and we've opened San Francisco, Hong Kong, Berlin. Basically, we kind of like followed also our clients. So let's say, and also where the traffic has been growing. We had a key focus on EMEA and North America, and now we are, I think, probably a third of all the traffic we are buying for our clients is now in Asia. So we see definitely a shift, and of course we've got different targets in terms of the value of those countries. So we look at the kind of quality we are getting in terms of app install in these countries, and matching the investments towards
Yes, in our case, I guess slightly more than 50% comes actually already from the international markets. We at Offers, we are set up obviously here with our headquarters in Seattle, but then we have offices in New York, but then also across Europe, and open an office in Seoul, South Korea as well. So we just see it really happening everywhere at the same time, instantly. And so I guess ultimately, the revenues should be in line with the overall advertising market. Having said that, there are obviously, certain, hubs, for mobile where app developers, marketers really target, the global market. So, not necessarily all the budgets, are in line with sort of the domestic economy. It's really sort of a multipolar world and can happen everywhere, and it's US companies can target the world as well as, companies from Finland or Singapore, you name it.
Great. Captain, Twitter is global, right? We all know that, but how global is it, especially in terms of revenues?
Yes, Twitter as a service is extremely global, but the majority of our revenues are obviously still in North America and US. We are expanding that globally quickly, but a huge challenge or thing that we're working on is making our products very global. So our advertising tools as well as our partnerships, great push by Has Offers to get into the APAC market and expand globally helps us as well as we work with them, as well as other partners both on the targeting and measurement side. And so we are continually building products to become more global, but we are primarily seeing revenue in the North American and US region. However, we've been extremely excited by a lot of the performance of our mobile app promotion product suite in international markets, especially in the beta and even after we've launched now, because there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in those markets, frankly, and then also because it's a new product and service in those regions. And so we've been excited about some of the first movers taking advantage of that.
But like Twitter, Google operates a suite of app install and app re-engagement products, both owned and operated and third party. It starts in a lot of instances with developers I work with AdMob, but includes search, YouTube, and as well the DoubleClick ad exchange. So it is a global offering that we provide, and we actually have teams deployed across Asia, Europe, and Mountain View as well. In the case of our products, they are with several of them self-serve enabled, and there's a considerable share of most major markets that's accessible through the AdWords platform. Any mobile media that's ad enabled, we tend to have substantial reach. AdMob reaches about 900 million users every month.
So from your experience, I mean, you've already got a footprint, a global footprint, and that's, I guess that's why you're on this panel. But from your experience of rolling out a global offer, have you seen any substantial differences between the local market, the US market, and the way it's structured in terms of relation between advertisers, publishers, network agencies, and the rest of the world, in particular EMEA zone and Asia, or the world is flat and everything is the same?
I mean, on our side, we saw like some really big differences when it comes also to attribution. So there are like some markets where we need to educate a bit more, the publishers and the ad networks, and tell them, we are using Has Offers or another third-party tracking, and we need to explain them how we are, looking at performance. So I think in terms of attribution, yeah, we need to spend more time with other local ad networks, which are, I think in the US the education is there, it's a bit more advanced. And in terms of pricing as well, some countries were still a bit surprised about, the level of CPM we're seeing.
Which is what, lower?
I don't know. In some countries we've got some assumptions. Let's say China, and we I don't know. Maybe we don't understand very well the value chain there, and maybe there are like a lot of I would say actors between the publisher and the agencies. But that's what we're trying to find out a bit more and to understand how we can get more direct to the sources.
So Raf, what differences do you see? I mean, is for you the attribution market a flat market? Everyone needs the same price, same everything, or you have adaptations when you go outside the US, you accompany your customers differently?
I guess sort of the, let's say, Western markets, are similar. They're not the same, and I guess the world is flat, apart from maybe the digital divide. But then there's certainly, in particular in Asia, specific markets that have different dynamics, so you have to understand them individually. I also don't think that there's actually an Asian market per se. They're just like many countries that are very different that happen to be in Asia. So you really have to understand Asia in particular.
So how do you do that from New York or from San Francisco?
I guess we travel a lot, we have teams, we communicate, we listen to our clients, we analyze markets, look into setup strategies, and you have to, I guess, define your winning strategies for each of the market. You just can't go there and say, this is our solution and works for everyone. Technically, maybe yes, but sort of the business dynamics might still be different.
So what you're saying is that in order to operate globally, you need to be present locally?
Pretty much so. I mean, not necessarily everywhere, but I think in the main markets, I mean, it has offers as a fairly young company. We have clients from, I believe, 73 countries, so we don't have offices in 73 countries. But I guess you have to be present and you have to be there, you know, with sort of the community and understand it. And you might travel, people come here, you know, you have to engage in the markets in any case.
So at Twitter, you know, everyone, you know, used globally, is the ad offering equivalent every single country, or do you structure it differently? And how do you address local markets at a global outside of the US?
First, from a presence perspective, we find relationships on a local basis to be extremely advantageous, mainly because there's unique ways that the product is used in all of those markets. So I referenced the early work I was doing on our partnerships team, where I would go to different markets from India, Brazil, Japan, Korea, and in every single one of those markets, they would have incredible stories from a user influence perspective of how they were using the product in different ways. As you can imagine, tweeting in 140 characters in German is extremely different than in Japanese. And so you can do very different things with the product there, and that actually creates different opportunities from an advertising perspective about reaching users in the moment who are talking about those different things or using the product in different ways. And we have really strong teams that are working with our clients on those local market bases to create really strong campaigns and maximize the ad products. But from an ad product offering, Kevin mentioned we did roll out globally, and we do offer it self-serve in all of those markets, so any advertiser can come in and get the same offering. But we do work closely with partners that I mentioned earlier, and so it does depend on which local partners we do support, and we are expanding that to support more and more to make that really seamless as those advertisers in each of those get set up.
So let's just pause here. If an advertiser has a direct relation with you, right, is already buying in the US, and say, now I want to target Spain, I want to target France, and I want to target Germany, do you think already you are designed internally to take them directly to those markets, and it's, you know, they already know the product, you know, and the recipe is the same, or you have to find a way to find a local flavor to make that really work?
It depends is the answer. The majority of the time that does just actually expand, but there are ways to cater it to that local market. So typically the same strategy in the US can apply if you are a game app, but if you are a taxi service, let's say, there could be completely unique conversations that are happening in local regions that you can tap into that are big movements, whether or not those are, you know, someone at the Giants game stranded, that, you know, talking about being at a baseball stadium stranded may not always correlate with needing a taxi, but there are unique conversations like that going on that can actually correlate highly with strong conversion. Right. So part of it's the process of finding and tapping in on those, but that's not necessarily only a global difference, that's also a real-time difference. So those conversations are springing up daily in the US, much less in different regions. That a part of that strategy is around being able to tap into those live moments.
Okay, so going to Google. Google has been probably the longest historical player on mobile advertising, and they've operated everywhere. So you probably have the best perspective on the differences, you know, between buying locally and buying advertising at a global scale on mobile. So where do you see differences, and how Google is helping their customers doing that?
Yeah, I think I just echo what both Ralph and Kelton said. I think on the network side, for a swath of companies that are driving app promotion, they're focused on exclusively efficiency and scale. And they find that the same dials that can drive that with global platforms like Twitter or like Google Search, where Google Search has high reach, can be tuned in Seattle just as well as it can be tuned in the Philippines. There are, of course, local behaviors, right, that are driven more by consumption habits. So local advertising behaviors. One of the most notable differences is the use of television in Korea and Japan. I think we've all sort of seen that. And it's interesting because Kevin spoke about the Mary Meeker slide, where time spent is disproportionate to advertising spend on mobile. It's an interesting phenomenon where in those two markets, a lot of the advertising activity has gone from digital to television, as they found that they can reach a really broad audience that drives high economic value for them. Right. And so we end up as Google selling in YouTube against those television budgets. So, I think those two markets, and in addition to those, China, are fairly distinctive. The Western markets, I would say, are relatively flattish. And for the more conventional app distribution play that we all know well, we all know the anecdote of Flappy Birds, which was one guy based in Vietnam can light up or ad enable his app and monetize a global audience. Advertisers can do precisely the same thing on the opposite side of that.
So let's talk to just 1 second about disproportion. That's an interesting topic. We have here an audience that's mostly American, and that's investing mostly dollars in the US. And we have here mostly US-centric companies, mostly, but you have a global footprint. And there is clearly a disproportion between the number of app downloads that is happening outside of the US versus just in the US. I don't have a number on top of my mind, but it's by far the huge majority, just by the sheer number of devices. So how do you explain there is such a disproportion between the actual activity of and usage of mobile outside of the US and the reality where most of the dollars are still spent in the US? What's stopping that from going further, much faster? Oops, that was the fun.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess, what marketers and advertisers are looking into is often, obviously, I guess, the purchasing power behind the users, right? And pure quantity doesn't really reflect the purchasing power. And advertisers are looking for this in particular, unless it's like, real app business where you generate business, there the dynamics are different. But, as long as sort of the normal dynamics, of advertising are in place, I think this will still need quite some time until the gap is actually closed.
So you think because of the demographics, it's one of the explanations is not going to change in the short future?
I think it's going to change, but it will take some time.
Okay. How about you, Keaton?
If we were to break down that slide slightly further to show, desktop conversion and time as well as dollars, and then mobile, and break that up by US essentially and rest of world, the LTV of users is just still lagging from an rest of world perspective because they're not spending as much on in-app purchases, et cetera, and other types of conversions. And so I think that same trend as the shift from desktop to mobile actually facilitates easier conversions will also happen rest of world as well. So I think it's just slightly behind US, but we will start to see justified ad spend in all of those other regions as we see higher conversions and higher spend in LTV to be correlated with those marketing campaigns.
The only other thing I'd add is there's a payment provisioning component here. So, users in a lot of emerging markets are prepaid mobile users, whereas we don't find that here. The one-click purchasing process is something that we're all accustomed to as users. So there's both the high GDP per capita phenomenon that exists on both desktop and mobile, which determines a lot of the conversion funnels, but as well this unique trait to mobile in China. Users are party to some ad transactions through Alipay. We don't have that in the U.S. So there's an additional layer on top of what the rest of the panel shared.
Okay, so we heard Kevin earlier said that the future of mobile advertising is native advertising, and I can only agree with that. And I think the earlier results of anyone who's tried it are always very positive. If this is true, if the future is about native advertising, which means formats that are part of the experience, but that are also very content related, and let's not just think about just app installs. Let's talk about mobile ads at large, so branding and everything. How do you think that will play when you just go outside of the US and you have to sound and feel local because the ad itself cannot just be the same everywhere, right? How do you deal with that from an agency point of view, for example?
I mean, on our side, we had this experience with Twitter. We just realized we needed like a lot of copywriters in who knows the local market, and you need to have local speakers and to be culturally relevant in your ads. So and whether it's native or not. And when it came to Twitter, when we were running campaigns for hotels.com globally, I mean, we needed like to be contextually and locally relevant. So you need people.
But how do you scale that? Like when you want to reach 20, 30, 40 languages, and your campaign is next week, right?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I mean, if your campaign is next week, then you've got still the opportunity to, you can get the metadata from, the App Store. There are a lot of formats where basically they are pulling everything from the App Store. So you've got already something you can start next week. But then if you want to see really good performance, you need to start.
But to adapt.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I guess that's sort of, one way of looking into it is also, how did you actually do that in the non-digital world and how much effort is it? So now we talk about, okay, let's do it in a week in whatever, 50 languages and so on. So I guess there are tools, that enable, and maybe it's also a business opportunity ultimately, right, to have tools in place that actually allow you to deliver on global concept, local flavor ideas in advertising. And it's much easier now than it's ever been before. Is it totally easy yet? No, it's not. But I guess ultimately it's going to be there.
Okay.
I'm going to change things up and let you go first this time.
So I think thank you very much. The executions do end up, I think, being localized in a lot of instances. I mentioned television and the primacy of television in key APAC markets. We actually see a lift in search behavior at the time that those television commercials run. And so search ends up being an important complement to the television media because it pulls in the users who have demonstrated intent and have been made aware of the products that they've been advertised. So there are sort of local behaviors, and it drives sort of episodic differences. There's seasonality, which is different market to market. So there are evergreen native ads, and I would call search native advertising, right? Just as much as I would YouTube, the TrueView ad format. So we see differences across those markets, and I don't think those scale well. So it ends up being local executions that help drive the value and bring users in who've demonstrated intent.
All right. I don't know. I'm not sure how much time we still have left, but I wanted to just talk about the topic of the advertiser point of view. Let's assume someone here in the audience, which has traditionally spent 100% of his budget in the US, say, I want to go outside the US. There is too many people spending money out there. I want to reach them. What kind of tips or insights would you give them? And keep it very short, as pragmatic as possible. What do they need to do to start to go and be global spenders?
Wow. I mean,
How are you?
yeah, I mean, I'm going to answer. It depends on the country, unfortunately. We've just realized that some countries you have to go there. It's the case, I would say, of probably South Korea or Japan, where it's such a different market. And if not, I mean, you need to partner with, a local agency or yeah, that's basically the two options I see.
So you're saying you cannot do it just from here?
I mean, it depends on the market. You can do probably, UK and EMEA, buys from the US. That's not, you can find traffic, and that's roughly the same players. But no, some markets are really different in terms of supply.
Yeah, I guess that's the value of technology ultimately, right? To look at the data, look at the performance data, insights, etc. Then you just make reasonable decisions and calls and execute on that, and then you look at the data again, right? And that's sort of the process.
Data is enough to go global?
I guess.
All right. That, but there's some truth to it.
I'd encourage just experimentation ultimately, being able to experiment in new markets. You might actually find and be surprised that the same strategy you have targeting similar, just straight translated keywords or interests could actually port extremely well. But that at least gives you a benchmark as to how you can do before you actually start partnering locally and optimizing and scaling. But it's non-trivial as you scale in a lot of those regions. So from there, it's just much more of how much volume and how much return on ad spend you're actually seeing.
Any tip?
I
insight?
agree.
You agree to that? All right. How much time do we have left? I don't know. Questions for the audience? I have one more question, but more actually. Someone's wiggling me. Should I guess 15 minutes? All right, 15 minutes. All right, so we still have a lot to talk. All right. Advertisers, publishers, ad networks, agencies. That's the ecosystem of the mobile ad space. But it looks to me that there is a kind of fifth player, which also is part of the picture, which are the app stores, right? The app stores have lately had their word to say about how advertising should or shouldn't look like, should play out, shouldn't play out. From your point of view, when an advertiser wants to go global, so go outside of the US and know very well the rules inside these countries, what kind of questions or reflexes or information should he have thinking about the rules that the App Store have for advertising? And if you add to that the fact that in some countries the app stores are not the same, like for example in Asia or in Korea, there are a lot more app stores than just what we know in the US. Is that a break or an opportunity to go global? And how do you build your platform or your services to help your customers go that way?
I mean, our clients are usually a little bit worried about having different builds on different app stores. I mean, for a lot of brands and games developers, for now, they stick to Google Play and iTunes. I mean, yeah, currently, there are still some a missing link. So you can, when you are driving traffic to an app store, you can get clicks, and after that, you are using browser first to give you an attribution, and then in the middle, it's still you're not quite sure where your traffic is. And I think app store play a key role on this kind of ecosystem. Hopefully, with iOS 8 and the new iTunes Connect, we'll get more insights on where what people are doing on the app store once they're on the page. But
right.
I think we're gonna see some big changes probably in September with the new iOS 8. I mean, in terms of data you can get from the App Store and sites.
So that's a good point. So Raf, you obviously know the announcements that Apple has made on iOS 8, new iTunes Connect. How does that affect first you? It's great news, it's wonderful news, it's terrible news. And how does that help your customers?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I agree with what Jerome said. Overall, it's an opportunity, right? It's about where the experts have to come in, the agencies, where the value proposition is, and look into, what does it actually mean for each of the markets, and then, develop the strategy specifically, for each of those opportunities. And if you get it right, it's an opportunity, I guess, to win market share. And if you don't get it right, then it's obviously a risk.
Okay. Twitter and Apple.
You mentioned some other app stores and things like that. I think that there's enough change and complexity with just even keeping up with Apple in some ways, as well as with Google on Play. Yeah, absolutely. And also just given the market share that they both have, I think it's there's a lot of reason just to focus there. But Kevin showed the example of our install notifications, which is an example of aligning with Apple's terms in terms of how things like IDFA can be used, but that's obviously great from a user experience perspective, activating a user, but also facilitating a better attribution of seeing a user who opens the app for the first time, even through a deep link with parameters that can be added to that type of a link as well, that circumvents some of the black box that is purposefully required from an Apple perspective from a liability point on the App Store. And obviously they're starting to pull down some of that those constraints. But working within those bounds in creative and different ways to be able to help advertisers is kind of how we think about building that ad platform to facilitate that on those different app stores.
So do you take also local specificities to app store regulations? For example, I can't remember which country, I think it's Brazil or Korea, or maybe both, that certain type of games have to cannot be advertised or cannot be labeled with certain PG age for local regulation. So they force you to do that. Is that something that you consider when you build your ad product, or you just find out on the way and then you adapt?
From our perspective, we have a whole team that's pretty focused on those types of things with regard to what type of content is on Twitter for certain age demographics by region, et cetera. And so they keep up with that very strongly, as well as how it's being advertised. And then we also get to obviously rely on the great work of the app stores in being able to ensure that proper content is downloadable in those regions by different people. And so we rely heavily on things like geo restrictions of the app stores and kind of offer it up for users to actually go through the app stores only.
Do you already support other Android stores that are not Google Play, or just the Play Store for now?
Only Google Play for now, and Amazon.
Yeah, I think this is where the value of companies that can abstract away all this complexity is so profound. And it's part of why there's been such a strong, I mean, the mobile agencies and the community of buyers that has emerged since the creation of the App Store has been incredibly important in bringing marketers and consumer businesses to the world of mobile to understand the value and to be able to rationalize that value as they're investing their marketing dollars. And so I think it does end up being a local execution, working with companies that understand the complexity. A market like China has just vast amounts of complexity, even in the actual submission process to the various app stores. And so working with intermediaries that can, again, abstract away that complexity becomes really essential.
Okay, great. I don't know how we're doing with timing. 10 minutes. Holy crap, so much time. All right, I need to find another question. In the meantime, if you have questions in the room, please raise your hand. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Jason.
Is this on? So you guys talked a lot about app install and the efforts that are being done worldwide. What about some of the efforts around retargeting? I know, for instance, there's been some recent purchases made. Maybe if each of you could just answer, like, what percentage of the clients you work with are just purely app install, and what percentage are now looking at more sort of ongoing revenue from those installs? I'd be really curious. Thank you.
That's for you guys.
Across all our clients, I would say it's probably around 20% are now active with re-engagement and retargeting. It's mostly e-commerce and travels type of clients. We haven't seen any games developer doing that at scale yet. There is a level of integration. I mean, we are probably live with 4 or 5 companies on retargeting, and we've seen really interesting results so far. And we believe that more and more budget, which were previously, let's say, on just purely app install, even incentivized, we see that moving towards retargeting. So we are very excited about that.
Okay, I don't really have a percentage, but what we see, there's a clear trend that everything that happens post-install is becoming more and more important. Yeah, that's also because there are more and more marketers, coming to sort of the mobile marketing or simply entertainment world, where actually the apps is used more as a CRM tool, not only as an e-commerce channel or advertising revenue stream play. So it's really sort of at one stage you have your users actually, and then it's really how do you engage them and what do you do with them, and there are different measurement points depending on what is actually the purpose of a mobile presence or an app.
Can you guys hear me? Oh, yeah. Extremely app install focused still. And part of that is the fact that we've just launched really generally 3 weeks ago, and we haven't invested enough, frankly, yet in the re-engagement, app conversion suites yet to make those really easy to scale. And that's a huge reason that we made the purchase of Tap Commerce as well, to be able to facilitate that, especially programmatically, not necessarily on Twitter, as that's a little bit easier, but as we extend that into MoPub inventory and the other supply sources that Tap Commerce taps into.
Yeah, I think this is a really important distinction that defines where the next veins of growth will come from in mobile advertising. Game developers all have a notion about what the value of remarketing is, but there is so much new technology being brought to the market that they're beginning to hone that, and it's not just these multi-SKU companies, retail and travel. I'll give you an example of a product that Google offers that ends up evolving the thinking, if there's been thinking at even game developers, is on YouTube. So user watches, and this isn't ad retargeting as much as it is content that is being viewed by a user, and then leveraging that data to then suggest an install for a user to download. So YouTube user watches a video is viewed on their channel, or the channel is viewed. We have the ability on other products like AdMob to actually target those users, and it ends up being a very powerful part of the overall not just cross-device conversion story that Kevin talked about, but also cross-product conversion story. So where there is this is going to be there are many touch points in a user's path to purchase, whether it's virtual purchases or actual physical purchases. And so I think retargeting is it's early days, I think for all of us here, but it's incredibly strategic, and where there has been sort of brittle thinking about its importance because people have used push notifications, they're starting to become more open as they realize that the power of deep linking and other technologies will remove a lot of the friction that's historically existed.
If we're looking 24 months ahead, right, from today, or even 18 or 12, so it's obvious that today most of the mobile ad spend is mobile app install, right? That's arguably a big market. Do you think, or do you feel, or do you see that there is a change in the industry that will get a lot more and significantly more budgets from other type of advertising, branding, or direct response, or that doesn't really matter? Or will the next 18 months still be dominated by a mobile app install market? I have an idea.
I think this is one of the coolest parts of the evolution of this ecosystem. I think Peter, during his opening, talked about how this is an audience of very familiar faces, and it is. Really, there hasn't been a sweeping talent migration from the world of ROI and brand advertising on desktop, or offline for that matter, to mobile. And yet it's still so strategic for consumer businesses and for agencies that support them. So I think invariably, as companies themselves begin to appreciate just how imperative it is to build for mobile-specific use cases that either are companions of the products that are core to their business, or are the actual core that they are able to deliver through mobile device, they're going to be able to rationalize the conversion funnels in a new way. And the agencies they work with are going to need to hone their infrastructure and their talent to be able to support those initiatives. So I think there are non-technology reasons why the pace of growth hasn't been higher in the non-gaming, non-messaging verticals. But I think that changes, maybe not in the course of the next 12, but certainly 24 months.
I would hugely echo that as even a very mobile-first company from the very beginning, and as we built out a very strong ad platform, even Twitter had a strong desktop focus to our ads initially, and through both acquisition and also just a shift of that focus towards mobile has really opened up opportunity for us to execute better there, but also do more of the bridging from a lot of the expertise from a desktop perspective to bridge that over to mobile, which is going to be really powerful from a multi-device targeting, attribution, and retargeting, and allow users to be able to continue browsing and transaction behavior that they start on desktop, continue on mobile, complete on desktop or mobile. And that's exciting, but it has been slightly slower because I feel like there's been the classic of the next 6 months, it's going to be all app engagements. And I think we might be saying that at least for the next 18 months because there is a lot of technology that still needs to happen to be able to facilitate that and make that really easily scalable.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I was going to say the one other thing I'd add is I think it's going to be the user acquisition managers at game developers who are going to make a lot of this possible, because that's where. What was that?
How?
Well, look at some of the. So I work with mobile-first companies. Not all of them are game developers, and if you look at the talent pools there, they've mostly pulled from talent at game developers who understand mechanics, who understand tracking and attribution incredibly deeply in a way that would take a traditional SEM marketer 24 months just to ramp on. And so, gaming is the first vertical where arbitrage became a reality in mobile. It was, right? And that was facilitated by the freemium model. And so it ends up being a very, very hireable skill set, but it's really siloed in gaming and maybe the one or two other verticals or categories where arbitrage has been a reality for years now.
By the way, Kazan, do you think Twitter will take over one day Facebook for mobile app install? Yeah, we know the answer is yes. The question is why.
We're still in early days. I can't, yeah, we have a long ways to go, but we're more excited about being able to help push the ecosystem forward. So we don't think of it as much as like a Twitter, Facebook race or anything like that, but much more around what we're doing with MoPub, being able to actually plug in the Facebook audience network and mediate that via MoPub. So an app developer can get the best monetization there is in their app, regardless of where that demand is coming from, and allowing advertisers to be able to reach the right user no matter what. And we just want to help facilitate that.
All right. So what's your view on the next 20 months?
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, there's no doubt that sort of, traditional advertising budgets will be increasingly fast being spent on mobile and digital. I mean, mobile ultimately will be the gravity point of marketing, if not of doing business in many cases. And I do think, that marketers realize this. We were just at the Mobile First conference in New York, and there were so many senior marketing people, from large companies. They're all looking into it. It's not a trend, it's there to stay, and they will shift, big dollars towards mobile, and it's a really exciting time for everyone here in the ecosystem, I believe.
Great. Guillaume?
On our side, we think it's still going to be an app kind of dominance for the next year or so. We are still using between 8 to 10 apps regularly, so there will be a higher focus on the quality of the installs you are getting. And it's also, we see more and more interest towards locations as well, because that's what makes mobile different. So we see brands being more and more interested to do really precise location targeting. So that's, and including re-engagement as well. So location re-engagement and looking more at quality over numbers games.
Great. Okay. So next short future is app install, but we'll change the future. Question from the audience, maybe? Remark, comment. Someone over there. You may come forward. There's a microphone. Run faster.
I had a question about, I know Kevin talked a lot about interest targeting on Twitter this morning. So I just wanted to know to what extent people think that display network targeting by user behavior, user interest, how important that's going to be for mediums like, both.
We didn't hear the question very well. The microphone was not working. Now yeah.
Question was around
That was better.
contextual and behavioral targeting on display networks. Both, like Kevin talked about for Twitter, as well as, of course, we're still waiting to see higher conversion rates on display ads that are targeted on keywords on Google. So just trying to get some comments from especially Twitter and Google on that. So
We find it's actually something when we started off on this, we weren't 100% sure whether or not interest in keyword targeting that we already had developed on our platform would be extremely effective for DR and performance type marketing, and whether or not we would need to develop new and different types of targeting other than just filters on the device, Wi-Fi level, et cetera. So we started out there, and we found that interest in keyword targeting, as we've built for our other platform or other customers around brand targeting, was extremely effective and was indeed actually driving really strong performance. However, we do believe that we can actually make that much more robust and rich, especially with really basic things like leveraging first-party advertiser data onto the platform via our tailored audiences product suite as well, and bridging things like website visitors to actually activate and install apps on mobile off of first-party data as well. So we do believe that it's a great cross between those things, and then really comes back to strong prediction on that as well. So the first-party data can not only be leveraged for targeting, but also tying into proper prediction in a first-party advertiser way. So our ad engine can actually learn about a specific advertiser's conversion performance from Twitter ads, and we do that in a very siloed way. But that becomes very powerful, so it's not only just about tweaking the targeting, but it can happen more automatically through the ad engine.
I think it's an important question, and the reason it's even a question is because the industry has done such a bad job of inferring or ingesting and using for the purposes of targeting user interests. We see that search for app install is actually the most efficient channel for a lot of the companies that we work with.
Can we have some examples?
You might hear about one today, actually. Hotel Tonight's a company that is disrupting the traditional model of online hotel booking because they offer a last mile solution that's very simple for consumers to book hotels when they haven't, like me, booked one coming to a new city. And they're using search to drive a lot of their go-to-market in Europe for now, than in any new market. And so, search, there's no greater declaration of interest than conducting a search. But of course, the work that Twitter's doing, the work that a lot of publishers are doing, who are bringing their solutions to market, and the third parties that are represented here that work with them are providing this rich data, and I think it's making the entire industry better by sending relevant ads to users where in the past that hasn't as much been the case.
Okay. One more question from the audience. I have one more, but if someone has a question, please raise your hand. Take wait forever. All right. The role of agencies, right? So let's assume that you have a great agency. Just to name one, randomly Fetch. In the US, they were helping you work great, and they recommended you to work with Twitter, they recommended you to work with AdMob, they recommended you to work with AdOffers and whoever else. And then your customer one day wants to go global, right? They want to go outside of the US. It so happens that Fetch has offices outside of the US, right? But not everywhere. They also have direct relations with you, where you have a global footprint. You have representation in EMEA, in Asia, etc. What would be your tip to this customer who has a traditional agency who wants to go global? Find an agency, stay with your agency, or talk to us and we help you get global.
Stay with
What
us.
do you see on your side, and what do you see on your side? And what do you see on your side?
Guess we are in the middle. So I guess, it's a great opportunity for agencies and for marketers to use agencies. And you really have to look into, are the agencies, let's say the traditional agencies, actually ready for mobile? Do they have the tools? Do they have the people? Do they have the expertise? If yes, okay, then go with one agency global. But if the answer is not yes, you have to look for experts, for in certain verticals or certain markets. And maybe, it's a compromise at the beginning because it's still kind of emerging. Yeah, but overall, for agencies, it's an opportunity. And as what I mentioned earlier, as the large marketers are bringing their budgets in, they're going via the agencies.
I'll try to reformulate the question to be more accurate. If the trend is programmatic, right? Programmatic buying, massive inventory, SSPs, DSPs, and you have vertical integrated platform like Twitter and Google and Facebook and who knows else and YouTube. What's the future of an agency in that picture? I mean, do they have really a future? And especially once you want to move outside of the US, or you can just rely on machines to do the job for you?
No, I mean on our side, yes, we see more and more, increase in terms of programmatic buying. So yes, you can centralize your buying from, let's say, one location. But there is still an emphasis in direct access inventory, so you need to talk to also like large publishers and be local. So for us, we see that as an opportunity to grow, and we are opening a new country every 6 months. So yeah.
So what you're saying is that the role of an agency is also identifying quality local sources that you might not be able to see from your desk in New York or in San Francisco or wherever. Good.
Especially when again, most of the advertising we are buying is blind. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it'll be hugely up to the first movers, especially in mobile, just because the shift is going on and there's such a shift towards programmatic that there will very likely still need to be great work done by agencies somehow, but I don't know if that's necessarily defined yet. And I think the first movers who get there and define it will help set the standard. But I mean, that can be everything from running locally, but just because it's programmatic doesn't mean that it's actually that relevant. Copy, everything else that we talked about earlier, I think we'll still need to have a lot of work done.
Good. So just to be concrete, when the customer says, I want to go outside, do you recommend them to speak with, and they have no agency, do you recommend them some agencies? Do you have a white list? How does that work?
Yeah, I give a call to the folks at Fetch. We have I'm actually meeting you for the first time today, so that was I'm being facetious. I think operating programmatically at a global level ends up being a great solution for an initial go-to-market. There is a real need to drive local execution when there's a white space of inventory that's not being accessed by the exchange, by the network, or by the publisher by virtue of the footprint that publisher has. And there are very, very large local publishers in some of the most critical markets that can only be accessed by working with agencies that have the relationships and the expertise and the technology to be able to access value on that inventory.
All right. Thank you very much. I think we are done with time. Thank you very much. A big round of applause for the great answers and the conversation.